Hey everyone! In the last video, we were going over the pop chord progression and how certain chords can be tied together by the notes they contain. And this was all important stuff, but the real key issue was that we did this all in the key of G. Our transposing skills and our understanding of the purpose of Roman numerals continues to grow. So it's time to apply it to that other crucial chord progression that is the foundation of so much music, the blues. Before we get into this, something important to remember is that both the pop chord progression and the blues can have different variations, but in the case of the pop chord progression, those variations come more from reordering. We can start on 1, but we can also start on 6 or even 4. It doesn't change the overall order of chords, but it does change the sound. With the blues, we usually start on 1, usually have 12 measures, and usually change chords in the same place. The reason this is important is because, just like with the pop chord progression, we want to start training ourselves to identify the blues when we come across it. As so much pop and rock music has grown out of the blues, sometimes the progression seems hidden. But not from us. For our purposes, we'll use this form as our basic structure. 4 bars of 1, then 4-4-1-1, and end with 5-4-1-1. And as all the blues songs that we've done so far have been in the key of C, let's transfer those Roman numerals to chords. This becomes 4 bars of C, then F, F, C, C, and then G, F, C, C. Let's play through this to remember what it sounds like, and we'll use half note strums for every measure. Ready? 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Very nice. Now, don't forget that this is not the only way we played this. For I Smell Trouble, we replaced the second bar of C with an F chord. In other words, we replaced 1 with 4. And we added a 5 chord at the end, in this case, G. This is a very common variation, but what else have we done? In the case of C Jam Blues, we kept that 4 chord in the second bar, but replaced the last 4 bars with the turnaround pattern, 2, 5, 1, 1, or D minor, G, C, C. Again, fairly common, and with Can't Buy Me Love, we used our most basic form, but swapped out that second to last bar of 1 with a 4. The connecting thread here is that although we changed the blues progression in several different ways, we never changed it so much that you couldn't recognize it as the blues anymore. And again, that's part of its genius. It's like a house that can literally change shape without falling down. Not many things can do that. So now that we've reviewed some variations, we're going back to the basic blues form. Only now it's time to change it in another way. We're going from the key of C to the key of G. We'll take away our key of C chords and refresh ourselves on the chords that occur in the key of G. And I may sound like a broken record here, but don't forget, different keys can have chords in common. They're just moved to different places. So, knowing that, what are our key of G blues chords? Well, let's start with the 1. That would be our G chord, and we'll put that in the majority of the measures. Then we have our 4 chord. That would be C, so let's place those where they belong. So far we're using the same chords that we would have used in C blues, but in the key of G, they relate to each other differently. So this is going to end up sounding like something new. And speaking of new, we have a new chord to attach to the 5, D major. And just like that, we have blues in the key of G. Let's play through this again with half note strums. Ready? 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent, everyone. Our musical world is expanding, and with it, the options for the songs we can play. But we're not done with this yet. Let's see if we can add 2 new variations here, one to do with the chords and one to do with the strumming. First of all, let's get to the chord variation. This will be pretty easy. We're simply going to swap out this 4 chord for another 5 chord. It doesn't change the overall sound very much and gives us some more time to stay on D major, which is always good practice. Now that that's done, here's the next variation. We're going to get rid of all that half note strumming, which was starting to get a little boring anyway, and replace it with the strum pattern we used in Somewhere Over the Rainbow. This was a cool pattern for that song, and it will be equally cool for this one. As most blues music strongly emphasizes beats 2 and 4, this will be a natural fit. One thing though, for Over the Rainbow, we played this very straight ahead. Sh, ti, ti, sh, ta, sh, ti, ti, sh, ta. For our blues progression, we're going to utilize a style called swinging. What this means is, we're going to lean into the rhythm a little and slightly change its feel, like this. Sh, ti, ti, sh, ta, sh, ti, ti, sh, ta. Let's add this rhythm to every measure and do one last thing. At the very end, we're going to play 1 quarter note and then rest for 3 beats. This will give us a second to prepare to do the whole thing again. And now that we've got all that figured out, let's give it a try. Remember, the first beat is actually a rest, so wait for that shh before you play. Ready? 1, 2, 3, and shh, ti, ti, ta, 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 shh, ti, ti. 2, 3, and. That sounds pretty good. But here's a question. As we play this, does it feel like we're playing blues or playing rock? Is the difference really clear, or does it maybe feel like we're playing both? Well, that's a fair question here, because we're about to attach this to a song by an artist who took the blues and led the way in transforming it into what we would come to identify as modern-day rock music. We're talking about a man who could be called the father of rock and roll, Chuck Berry. Charles Chuck Edward Anderson Berry was born in 1926 and grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. Though he got into some trouble as a teenager, he also had an interest and a talent for music. While working at an automobile factory in 1953, he began to perform with the Johnny Johnson Trio and started to develop his own guitar style, which was heavily influenced by blues musician T-Bone Walker. In 1955, Berry went to Chicago and met Muddy Waters, who suggested he get in contact with Leonard Chess, who co-owned a record label that we should be familiar with by now, Chess Records. Though it was primarily a blues label, they took interest with Berry's interpretation of an old country song called Ida Red. Thinking the title of the song was a little too rural sounding, noting that the lyrics and beat had been changed, and also wanting to avoid copyright issues, the song title was changed to Maybelline, inspired by someone noticing a Maybelline mascara box lying around the studio. After the song was released, it reached number 1 on Billboard's Rhythm and Blues chart and number 5 on the Hot 100. But more importantly, it was one of the first rock and roll hits, a pioneering song of a genre that was still in its infancy, and Chuck Berry was leading the way. Over his career, Berry set the standard for rock music, with hits like Roll Over Beethoven, Rock and Roll Music, You Never Can Tell, and a personal favorite, Johnny Be Good, which was famously featured in Back to the Future. In a 2017 article in The Hollywood Reporter, Billboard executive Joe Lynch said that while Berry didn't invent rock and roll, he codified 3 of its most important elements: an irresistible swagger, a focus on the guitar riff as the primary melodic element, and an emphasis on songwriting as storytelling. Through Chuck Berry, the guitar was not just an instrument rock musicians used, it was the instrument rock musicians used. Or as Lynch said in his article, with Elvis Presley or Little Richard, it's the singing that gets stuck in your brain. But with Berry, it's the guitar riff that gets played over and over in your head. In 1986, Berry was part of the inaugural group of musicians inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, along with peers such as Elvis Presley, Buddy Holly, Little Richard, Ray Charles, and James Brown. And when he passed away in 2017, restaurants all over St. Louis held a mass toast at 10 p.m. in his honor. The song we're going to take a look at is School Days, also known as Ring Ring Goes the Bell. This was a big hit for Barry in 1957, and the music would later be reused in 1964 for another one of his classics, No Particular Place to Go. But this is a fantastic example of the marriage between rock and blues, and Chuck Berry serves it up in style. After 2 measures, we play through this 7 times. Remember that the first beat of the measure is a rest, and that we're trying to swing this rhythm, not play it straight. When we play through this progression the 4th time, keep the sh, ti, ti, sh, ta rhythm going into the guitar solo. And that's all we really need to know. As Michael J. Fox once said, this is a blues riff in G, watch me for the changes, and try to keep up, okay? Let's do it.
Up in the morning and out to school. The teacher is teaching the golden rule. American history and practical math. You study them hard and hoping to pass. Working your fingers right down to the bone. And the guy behind you won't leave you alone. Ring, ring goes the bell. The cook in the lunchroom's ready to sell. You're lucky if you can find a seat. You're fortunate if you have time to eat. Back in the classroom, open your books. Gee, but the teacher don't know how mean she looks. Soon as 3 o'clock rolls around, you finally lay your burden down. Close up your books, get out of your seat. Down the halls and into the street. Up to the corner and round the bend. Right to the juke joint you go in. Drop the coin right into the slot. You gotta hear something that's really hot. With the one you love, you're making romance. All day long you've been wanting to dance. Feeling the music from head to toe. Round and round and round you go. Into the slot. You gotta hear something that's really hot. With the one you love, you're making romance. All day long you've been wanting to dance. Feeling the music from head to toe. Round and round and round you go. Hail, hail, rock and roll. Deliver me from the days of old. Long live rock and roll. The beat of the drums loud and bold. Rock, rock, rock and roll. Feeling is there, body and soul.
Well done, everyone. Practice that song if you feel like you need to, but otherwise, let's move on and keep exploring the blues in G. We just saw how the blues blended seamlessly into a rock song, but can the blues also blend into a simple, folksy kid song? Let's return to our original form, remove the rhythms, and change that D back into a C. Now that we're back at our basic template, here's something new to try. We messed with which chords we used, and we messed with the rhythm, but how about messing with the overall length of the progression? Maybe go from 12-bar blues to 16-bar blues. And how are we going to expand this? By taking the last 4 measures and repeating them. So after you play D, C, G, G, play it again. Of course, these 16 measures take up more space than is necessary, so let's do some condensing. We can combine these together and add some repeat signs. Interesting, but if we're going to mess with the length, let's mess with it a little more. At the very end, we're going to add 2 more measures of G. If we plan on looping this, which we are, those 2 extra measures provide a helpful cushion as we return to the top. So now that we've done all this, I don't think we should mess with it anymore. Because remember, you can overdo variations on anything. The key is to make sure that the essence of what you're doing doesn't get lost while you're trying to be creative. Imagine ordering a pizza in a restaurant, only to receive a bowl of celery. Let's play this with half notes to see how it sounds. Ready? 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That sounds pretty good, but here's one final thing we're going to do to mess with it. We're going to speed this up so the half notes basically sound like quarter notes, but still 2 strums per chord. And to do this, we're going to change our time signature from 4/4 to 2/4. To assist with getting this a little quicker, let's try this drum pattern. Down, up, down, up. This gives it some emphasis on the first beat. You can play all down strums if you want to, but that's a little tiring, so I recommend the down-up way. Let's try playing this to hear what it sounds like. Ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Very nice. So all that's left is to find an attachable song. To find the proper song, we have to once again revisit one of our old stomping grounds. We've been back to Germany, Chicago, and California. Now it's time to head back to Detroit. In 1993, high school student Jack Gillis became friends with Meg White after meeting each other in a restaurant where she worked as a line cook and he would read poetry during open mic nights. They began dating and married in 1996, with Gillis taking the unconventional step of adopting his wife's last name, becoming Jack White. Jack had played drums in various Detroit bands, but he switched to guitar when he heard Meg play drums on a whim one night. In 1997, they began performing as a duo, calling themselves the White Stripes. The White Stripes stood out for a number of reasons. They dressed almost entirely in red and white, as an homage to peppermints, Meg's favorite candy. They refused to be interviewed separately, and most notably, they were the only members of the band. All songs were either vocals, guitar, and drums, or vocals, piano, and drums. Drawing influences from blues players like Son House, Blind Willie McTell, and Robert Johnson, country influences from artists like Hank Williams and Loretta Lynn, and a good helping of the garage rock sound, they became a fixture in Detroit and started gaining popularity, releasing their first album, The White Stripes, in 1999. Their fourth album, 2003's Elephant, would produce their most successful single, Seven Nation Army, but it was the album before, 2001's White Blood Cells, that really brought them attention. Acclaimed by both fans and critics, it contained much of the raw and gritty rock their audience had come to expect, but also had something unexpected. Much like Green Day's Good Riddance, the White Stripes felt no obligation to be pigeonholed into having only one sound. They included a folksy children's song, We Are Going to Be Friends. Released as a single in late 2002, the reactions to We Are Going to Be Friends brought to mind much of the initial impression people had of Good Riddance. The AV Club stated it was maybe the album's most shocking track, with a gentle reminiscence of childhood, while AllMusic described it as a sweet acoustic ballad. The song was featured in the movies Napoleon Dynamite and Wonder, was used in a promo for PBS Kids, and in 2017 was turned into a children's book with illustrations by Eleanor Blake. But at the heart of it all was a simple blues progression. And we're just about ready to play it. After 8 beats, the vocals come in and we start. Our whole blues variation is played through 4 times in a row, and then we get to a bridge part that, once again, has chords we don't know yet. So we can just rest our hands, get our bearings, and jump back in on the final verse. And at the very end, we repeat the D, C, G, G part 3 times instead of 2, and end on a G chord. And that's it, everyone. We're ready to play.
shell, back to school, ring the bell, brand new shoes, walking blues, climb the fence, books and pens. I can tell that we are gonna be friends. I can tell that we are gonna be friends. Walk with me, Susie Lee, through the park and by the tree. We will rest upon the ground and look at all the bugs we found. Safely walk to school without a sound. Safely walk to school without a sound. Here we are, no one else. We walk to school all by ourselves. There's dirt on our uniforms from chasing all the ants and worms. We clean up and now it's time to learn. We clean up and now it's time to learn. Numbers, letters, learn to spell, nouns and books and show and tell. Playtime we will throw the ball, back to class, through the hall. Teacher marks our hide against the wall. Teacher marks our hide against the wall. We don't notice any time pass. We don't notice anything. We sit side by side in every class. Teacher thinks that I sound funny, but she likes the way you sing. Tonight I'll dream while I'm in bed, when silly thoughts go through my head about the bugs and alphabet. And when I wake tomorrow I'll bet that you and I will walk together again. I can tell that we are gonna be friends. Yes, I can tell that we are gonna be friends.
Good job, everyone. That song can feel a little fast, so you may want to practice it, but I have confidence you can do it without much problem. So let's move on to the next thing. I said we didn't play the bridge because it had some chords we didn't know. That wasn't exactly true. We did know most of the chords in that part, but there was one that we didn't know, and I didn't go over it because I just wanted us to focus on blues and G. But I think you've got that, so it's time to take a look at the mystery chord. And we're going to take another trip back to Seattle to take a closer look at the band that came out of Temple of the Dog, and also look at a song by a former Nickelodeon star with an amazing set of pipes. Next time. All right, see you, everyone.